Okay, so we're diving into Anurag Sagar, and you guys have really gotten us interested in this whole thing with these excerpts about Kabir and this Kal character. Now, I know a bit about Kabir, the mystic poet, but this Kal figure is a new one for me. What's the deal with him?
Yeah, well, that's the big question this whole text is trying to answer, right? So we've got Kabir, who was this incredible thinker, way ahead of his time, bridging different faiths back in 15th century India. And within the Anurag Sagar, it's written like it's a conversation between him and his disciple Dharam about how this Kal figure, even though he wasn't involved in the creation of the world, still manages to get power over it.
So it's like, Kabir, you're the expert on the universe. Explain this guy.
Exactly. And it's something that's puzzled people for a very long time.
I bet.
Because Kal isn't necessarily evil in like the classic way. He's more like this force of nature who wants to have his influence felt. The text describes how he actually goes to Kabir and is kind of like, hey, I deserve some power here.
I can just picture that. Like he just storms in all offended that he wasn't invited to the creation party.
Right. And Kabir, he's not one to back down from a challenge.
No way. So is there like this big cosmic showdown?
It's more like a chess match using wordplay and his mystical knowledge to basically outsmart Kal.
Clever.
And Kabir manages to prevent him from having any control over the first 3 yugas.
Okay, so for those listening who might not know what a yuga is,
right,
it's basically a huge chunk of time.
Right.
Like a chapter in the story of existence.
Exactly, a long, long time.
Okay, so Kabir wins round 1, keeps those first 3 yugas for himself, but I'm guessing Kal doesn't just give up that easily.
You know it. Kal might have lost a few battles, but he's persistent, and he still manages to gain control of the 4th yuga.
Okay, so Kabir loses a yuga. Why? What happens? This is where it gets juicy, right?
This is a huge moment in the story because it sets up everything that comes after.
Okay, I'm hooked. What does Kabir do? Does he just say, okay, Kal, it's all yours, have fun with the 4th yuga?
Not exactly. This is where the Anurag Sagar takes this fascinating turn. Kabir can't fully take back this yuga, but he comes up with a plan to send out these 4 messengers during this time.
Messengers, like a cosmic telegram. Sorry you missed out this time, maybe next yuga.
Not quite. These messengers are a big deal. They're like agents of belief spreading different paths to understand the divine.
So not literal mailmen, but more like symbolic figures who influence how people believe.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about this whole thing. It's not just a story. It gives us a way of understanding how spiritual ideas start to grow, how they spread, and maybe even get a little confused along the way.
Okay, hold on. So you're saying these messengers, they don't stick to the plan that Kabir's initial message gets. Wait, what are you trying to say?
Well, what I'm getting at is that the text warns that these paths, these different ways of approaching spirituality can become distorted.
Obviously.
Over time, they can be misunderstood, twisted, like a big game of telephone, but on a cosmic level.
Okay, so we've got this potential for misinformation, for Kabir's message getting, messed up. But how does that happen? Who's behind it all?
That's where we'll pick up when we come back.
So before we went away, we were talking about how Kabir's message has this potential to get all jumbled up, like his teachings kind of morphing into something else entirely. And it made me wonder who or what is behind this cosmic game of telephone.
Right. Well, the Anurag Sagar, it doesn't leave us hanging, thankfully. It actually introduces us to another character in all of this, a character named Niranjan, who's aligned with Kal. And let me tell you, if you thought Kal was a force to be reckoned with this, Niranjan is on another level.
Okay, this is giving me serious Puppet Master vibes. So he's working with Kal.
Got it.
But what's his angle? What's his big plan for messing with Kabir's message?
Okay, so here's the really interesting part. Niranjan doesn't send out his own messengers to go directly against Kabir. Instead, he tells them to do something way sneakier.
Oh.
He wants them to use Kabir's name, his words, his teachings, but to twist them around, corrupt them, make people confused and divided.
Wow. Talk about adding insult to injury. It's like, not only did Kal take over his yuga, but now Niranjan is putting words in his mouth.
Exactly. And it's kind of a powerful way of showing how easily belief can be manipulated, how spiritual authority can be hijacked to benefit someone or to hold on to power. It's like a warning that still rings true even today.
No kidding. I mean, think about how often we see this even now. Historical figures getting misrepresented, their words taken out of context, all to fit someone's agenda. It's happening all the time.
It is. And that's what's so amazing about the Anurag Sagar. It might be ancient, but the message feels so relevant to what's going on right now. It's reminding us to really pay attention, to question what we hear, especially when someone claims they've got a monopoly on the truth, especially when they're using a revered figure like Kabir's name to do it.
So don't just accept something without thinking about it critically.
Yeah.
Even if it sounds really profound or comes from someone who seems really important. We've got to dig a little deeper, right? And remember that even messages that start with the best intentions can get twisted over time.
Absolutely. We have the ability, and I'd even say the responsibility, to think critically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to Kabir for a sec. This whole thing with Kal tricking him and taking control of the Yuga, it just still feels a little unresolved for me. Like, why would Kabir ever give in? I mean, he's supposed to be this wise, powerful being.
Yeah.
Was it all part of some master plan?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something that scholars and people who follow Kabir's teachings have been debating for ages. Some people see it as this statement on free will versus destiny. Did Kabir choose to give up control? Or was it always meant to happen this way?
Whoa, now we're getting into the really deep stuff. Fate versus free will.
Yeah.
I mean, if everything is already decided, does it even matter if we try to understand things?
That's the paradox, right? That's what the Anurag Sagar is pushing us to think about. Even if we're all just actors following a script we didn't write, we still have the choice of how we play our parts, how we search for knowledge, how we aim for enlightenment. It's in that searching, that active pursuit of truth where we really figure out who we are.
I like that. It's like, yeah, the script might be written, but how we interpret it, how we deliver the lines, that's on us.
Exactly. And that's what makes the whole thing with Kabir's name being used to spread distorted teachings even more significant.
Because it shows how easy it is for something as powerful as a name,
Yeah.
a reputation, a legacy to be misused.
Yes. And it underscores why it's so important to look beyond names and labels. We need to dive into the heart of the teachings. Don't just follow blindly, seek to understand.
It's like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like in this case, don't judge a teaching based on who's delivering it, especially if they're saying they're speaking for Kabir.
Right. And the Anurag Sagar, it really drives that point home. It's not enough to just accept something as it appears, especially when it's dressed up in spiritual-sounding language. We have to look deeper, think about the motivations, and most importantly, try to connect with the actual message, the truth underneath it all.
So we have to be active in our own spiritual understanding. No more blind faith. We've got to question things, explore, and maybe even wrestle with those big questions ourselves.
Exactly. It's this constant process of searching, questioning, and getting a clearer understanding. Anurag Sagar. It's not a rule book. It's like a conversation starter. It's an invitation to really think about these ideas and come up with our own interpretations.
Like Kabir is saying, here's the basic structure, the puzzle pieces. You put them together yourself. And don't freak out if some pieces don't fit perfectly.
That's a great way of putting it. Those gaps, those contradictions, those mysteries, that's part of what makes this text so captivating. It reflects how complex belief is, the messiness of being human, and that constant search for meaning in a world that doesn't always give us clear answers.
It's a story about power deception and that deep human need to connect with something bigger than ourselves. And at its heart, it reminds us that sometimes the biggest truths come from questioning, not from blindly accepting.
Well said, Anurag Sagar. It sticks with you. It makes you think. It challenges you. And it encourages us to look both inside ourselves and out into the world, to question the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we're told, and to approach life's mysteries with curiosity and a critical mind.
So next time you find yourself repeating something you believe without really getting it, holding on to an idea without knowing where it came from, take a second. Ask yourself, what would Kabir do?
Now that's a good question for all of us.
This deep dive into Anurag Sagar has been quite the journey. We've explored ancient wisdom, unpacked these complex metaphors, and uncovered these surprising connections to our lives today. But remember, true understanding, it's a lifelong journey. So keep those minds curious and never stop questioning. Until next time on The Deep Dive.